Hi everyone. I'm very happy to be here today and to have the honor to have one of the first keynotes. It was just announced, like saying we want to position France as a global leader is a kind of a huge program, but I want to take a different perspective. What was said just before was, and I just heard it, technology is nothing without people. And I think this is a key part of my mission, but let me get back to that in a minute. So a few months ago, I gave a presentation in Brussels, and we were precisely talking about how France is dealing with the AI strategy and how we are delivering on our mission to bring AI to armed forces. And I remember someone who I think might be in this room from Estonia asked me the question, where have we failed? It kind of burned that question into my head. And although I will not tell you how we globally or everyone failed in that case, I want to tell you a little bit about how I failed personally. 10 years ago, I was an engineer, French out of school. As you can see, I don't have an extremely long career behind me. And I had a conviction. That was that AI was going to change, the world, obviously, because I was an engineer, but defense more generally. And back then, some of you might remember AI was not a thing. We were talking about data, big data, and there was those 3 Vs, volume, velocity, everything. And the interesting thing was we were not talking about AI, but we had this kind of feeling that data was going to change things. And with that strong belief, when you look at the field of defense, data is everywhere. Military systems have been known for a while for being one of the best in their class. We have had sensors for decades, and so the defense area is one of the key areas if you want to do data processing and AI. And so, as an engineer, I was like, okay, so we have a data problem. We want to get machine learning, fancy algorithms to solve problems for operational people. So this is an engineering problem. What do we need to get there? At the time, I would say that technology was very different. Again, for those who remember, GPUs were beginning to be a thing. GPU compute was beginning to be a thing. But more generally, technology was not as mature and was very different from what it is today. It was less available, it was more complicated. There were less people who were trying to solve for the same problems that you were in the first place. Something you might relate to, I guess, otherwise I would feel bad. We had legacy systems all around, and we still have, actually. Legacy systems that are siloed, that you cannot modify, where data is not accessible, you have some vendor lock-in, and you have the data, you have everything, but you just don't have the means in order to implement new things, in order to deliver on new capabilities. Those systems sit next to each other. They are poorly connected. Because you design your satellite system and then aside your communication system, and it was never intended in the first place for them to talk to each other. And so again, I figured okay, this is an engineering problem. We can find a technical solution. Sure. Oh boy, how wrong was I? I was wrong because naively we did deliver a technical object. I will not dive into details, but that will enable us to store data, process it at scale, all the fancy stuff, get some data lakes, stuff like that. So in the end, from a technical perspective, it made sense, right? What I learned the hard way, though, was we were not owners of our own data. It was inaccessible, as I was saying. As designers, one, didn't make them accessible, but also, on the other hand, didn't want to make them accessible because the stuff we could do from a machine learning perspective might be stealing business from them. And I'm not blaming anyone, to be clear. It's just how it was. There was also no incentive whatsoever for industrial partners to work with each other, sometimes even to work with us in the first place. People didn't want to change the way they were doing things because we were talking a lot about agile methodology. We still do, but beyond the methodology itself, it was more about doing things differently. And I'm sad to say that, but leaders mostly didn't care about IT. And I think AI is a great opportunity for that, because for me, it's the first time in history where everyone, leaders, operational, military personnel, they know that IT is something that they should care about, and this is a big improvement. But back in the days, nobody cared. It was just well, whatever, give me a computer and just do what I need to do. And in the end, who cares about software, right? We have boats, we have planes, what should we even invest money into computer systems? Just buy whatever you need and that's it. I don't want to hear about it. And I fail at recognizing that what would become AI was not a technical problem. It was a people problem, it was an organization problem, it was a cultural problem, it was an execution problem. Everything I might do back then from a technical perspective, I wouldn't say it was pointless, but it was just failing to see the broader question, which was, we need to do things differently. And technology is probably the minority part of the work that we need to do in that way. Anyway, after this failed attempt, I joined Google, as you probably heard just before, because I was aware that I was lacking a lot from a technical perspective, also maybe from an experience perspective, to be honest. And I think I will not go back to the date there, but I think the key learning I had was strategy without execution is pointless. And I think in governments, this is something we might struggle with sometimes. We do big strategy, and on paper we have figured out everything, but the problem is once you have the paper written, how do you get there? How do you do execution? And obviously, I had this opportunity at Google to see how generative AI was changing the world and is still changing the world today. And when you see the pace at which you can imagine, build, release a cutting-edge technology, it gives you a good perspective on where the bar should be in the first place. Now, 10 years later, I'm kind of back to square one because I'm back in defense. And if I'm honest with you, I would like to say that the situation is completely different from what it was 10 years ago. But when you look at, when I look at organizations that are not tech native, I would be interested to hear if any of you there feel that they have been doing much progress since 10 years ago. I think that my mission now is very different. Given I failed the first time, one, I don't want to fail a second time, obviously. But I need to achieve what we failed at collectively in the last decade, which is transforming our organization, our processes, our systems to make them AI native. And by AI native, as I said just before, it's not about technology. It's also everything that is around AI and that is enabling AI to actually work in the first place. And I would say we have an operational necessity because sometimes engineers like to build technology for the sake of building technology. I'm guilty of that myself. But when you look at the battlefield today, and I don't think anyone will say otherwise in this room, we see the importance of AI and autonomy. We see that everything that is happening in the civilian world, which is a move from the value from the hardware, high-tech hardware, to smarter, massified, low-cost hardware, is a thing. It's a thing in the civilian world, it's a thing in defense, and this is what we see on the battlefield, and we see that this is going to keep happening in the coming years. And the thing I integrated into my mission is our enemies are the ones who set the bar and the standards for what you're going to face. I can decide whatever I want. I will not be able to decide what military personnel will have to face on the battlefield. And I think this is a key decision factor because one of the key questions I have that keeps me up at night, mostly figure of speech, is who is going to win the war tomorrow? Is it going to be the one who has the best hardware, or is it going to be the one who have the most GPUs in their data center? Obviously, it's more complicated than that. Don't quote me directly, but I think there is still a very serious question about this. Like, if we go through the rabbit hole of thinking AI is going to change, defend the world of technology, then at least as of today, AI is very much related to the number of GPUs that you have in order to do compute. And so in terms of investment, is the number of GPU you have a big metric in terms of what you will need to deliver and the kind of capability you will have on the battlefield? So we can't afford to fail anymore. And I would say instead of saying we are putting France as a global leader, I can tell you what we are doing differently. What we are doing differently is, one, taking ownership of our destiny in multiple forms. One, we are hiring talent. I think this is kind of an ongoing topic of discussion, we lack the talent. By defining the mission, defining what we want to do, paying a little bit better, let's be honest, we are able to attract talent. We have a lot of people right now who want to contribute to public missions and who want to contribute to defense in Europe specifically. And so talent is in there, and we hire people in order for them to deal with all the problems that we haven't been able to deal with in the last couple of years. We create the resources we need in order to deliver AI at scale. I was talking about GPUs. Obviously, we buy computing capabilities, we buy storage capabilities, interconnection, everything you need in order to get systems to talk to each other, to get systems and algorithms to flow, to get data to flow between systems, to get data to flow to operational people. We work together also with industry partners, because one of the caveats, I think, is assuming that you can do everything on your own, which is just simply not possible. And especially in Europe, I think one of our weakness and strength is also the amount of players, the amount of technology providers, the amount of people who want to deliver products, to deliver value to the battlefield. And so the key question is not, what am I'm going to do on my own? The key question is, what am I going to do and what others will be able to do with me, and how do we get all those people in a room in order to build things that are going to be useful and meaningful? I'm not going to give you too much details, but everyone who has tried here, I think, to work on industrial partnerships with government knows that this is hard. This is hard because of digital infrastructure, this is hard because of procurement, this is hard because of processes, everything. And I think this is exactly what I'm trying to fix. This is one of the key areas where we've been failing. We need to do things differently. We need to educate leadership in the organization. We need to educate people about AI, about digital transformation, because without that, there is no AI either. We need to lead that data-backed digital transformation. And more importantly, and probably first and foremost, we need to break and rebuild all the processes that are hindering us. Again, when we talk about strategy, we talk a lot about what we want to do, but we often overlook all the things that we created to slow us down. Cybersecurity, not saying this is a bad thing, this is a good thing, but cybersecurity that actually enables operational use cases. This is a way to put it. And so all the regulation and the way we have been implementing processes in the government, and I'm blaming even myself for that, are often way too complicated, way too slow in order to deliver what we want to deliver in the first place. So this is everything we need to take back, rethink, break, rebuild in order to make it efficient. From the agency perspective, we also lead a product roadmap that is ambitious. The idea is also not to play catch behind game between what others are doing. It's more trying to leapfrog a little bit and go much deeper into agentic AI, robotics on the battlefield, because I believe, and I strongly believe, that AI is making its first move into the real world, be it like on the cyberspace, but also in the actual real world through robotics, typically. And so we are betting, and I am betting on AI having more importance into the real space. And whether we are right or not in our bets, back to where I failed personally a few years ago, I think the key thing that will stay, whatever happens, whenever we are successful or not on that bet that AI is going to be a thing in the real world, then everything that we are going to fix and rebuild is going to stay there. We're going to be more efficient, and we're going to be able to do much faster loop in terms of decision, system building, and delivering value at scale for operational and military personnel. Thank you very much for listening.